It's late summer in the year 2000. Sierra Leone is in the midst of a gruesome civil war. The Revolutionary United Front, a rebel army, is opposing the government and is heavily supported by a fearsome gang called the West Side Boys. British forces were sent to Sierra Leone to defuse the situation, initially on non-combat missions, but this quickly changed when the UN peacekeepers from the Royal Irish Patrol were ambushed and taken hostage. The SAS, SBS, and Para-Regiment were called in to execute Operation Barras, a rescue mission of the 6 soldiers and their liaison officer held captive in the African jungle. On August 25, 2000, Major Alan Marshall and his 11 men from the 1R Irish, accompanied by their translator, Lieutenant Musa Bangura, were on their way to visit Jordanian peacekeepers in Sierra Leone. On the way back to their base, Marshall decided to take his patrol towards the West Side Boys' territory to confirm information they had just received that the gang had begun to disarm. Turning down a dirt road towards Magbeni, the village where the West Side Boys were based, a Bedford truck with an anti-aircraft gun mounted on the back blocked their path, and the group was quickly surrounded by a large number of gang members. The patrol were forced into canoes at gunpoint and taken down the Rokal Creek to a village called Barras, where they were held hostage. The Brits, having heard the news, sent a negotiation team led by Lieutenant Colonel Simon Fordham to meet with the gang leader, Fode Calais. On August 29th, 4 days after the capture, Calais met demands to show proof of life by bringing Marshall, along with Captain Ed Flaherty, to the negotiations. Flaherty shook hands with Fordham and secretly handed him a map of Barras that he had drawn, detailing the village layout and the building where the soldiers were held. On August 31st, the British team traded satellite telephones and medical supplies for 5 of their men, those who were married, leaving 6 still inside. Following their release, a West Side Boys spokesman who called himself Colonel Cambodia called the BBC for an interview where he detailed demands, including a change in a peace agreement Sierra Leone had signed in 1999 and the release of some prisoners by the Sierra Leone police. Calling from a satellite phone, the battery died fairly quickly, but the call went on long enough for the Brits to pinpoint the exact location of the call. After a fortnight of extremely high demands, and SAS members on the ground reporting they had not seen the remaining hostages for 4 days, the British authorities became worried that the negotiations were just a stalling tactic and the hostages may be taken inland to a more secure location, or worse, killed. It was decided that the operation would start the very next day, on September 10th, assaulting the 2 villages simultaneously. The SAS would be included in both attacks, with the Para-Regiment supporting them in the attack on Magbeni. The mission was to free the 6 soldiers, their liaison officer Lieutenant Musa Bangura, and any other Sierra Leonean civilians that were in the West Side Boys' captivity. That night, while the West Side Boys were asleep, 2 Chinooks packed with machine guns came roaring in at 125 miles per hour, stopping to hover over the campus before the rebels had even woken up. 2 waves were sent, one from the mouth of the river to the north and another over the jungles to the south. The SAS team on the ground at Barras opened fire on the West Side Boys to distract them and prevent any of the hostages from being killed by gang members. Flying just above the treetops of the mangrove swamps, the helicopters inserted the SAS troops, who fast-roped into the village. With SA-80 rifles, they aimed for the hut drawn out on Flaherty's map. The West Side Boys opened fire instantly, one of them mortally wounding Trooper Bradley Tinian in the torso. He was dragged to the helicopter and provided medical attention in the air, but sadly succumbed to the injury. Meanwhile, his teammates continued the operation, engaging in any resisting gang members and capturing any who surrendered. Among the captured was gang leader Fode Calais. The British captives could be heard shouting to their rescuers, "British Army!" but there was no sign of Bangura. Held in a form of an open torture pit, he was eventually found, starved, beaten, and covered in human waste. The lightly armed rescue crew broke through to the hostages, but knew they couldn't hold their position for long. Less than 20 minutes after entering, the team was leaving with the hostages secured. Meanwhile, in Magbeni, a different SAS team and the para-regiment were dropped into a wetland nearby, heavy machine guns in their hands as well as 81mm mortars for support. Wading through chest-high swamp, some of the team made it to land and headed toward the village, while the rest of the men waited in the swamp to secure a landing zone for the Chinook to return with the remaining teammates. Carrying the rest of the paras, the Chinook returned but was immediately put under fire from heavy machine guns. The helicopter returned fire, using its M134 miniguns to suppress the counterattack, while 2 Lynx attack helicopters used bombs to clear ground in the village, including the heavy machine guns, creating a safe landing zone. As the group moved forward on the ground, a large explosion hit. This was possibly fired by a British support group, but it injured 7 of the men. Radioing in a casualty report, the team was picked up by the Chinook that was heading to Barras to collect the hostages, who had just been freed by the SAS. The helicopter picked up the wounded, then the Royal Irish hostages, and returned to the base with the team, except for Trooper Bradley Tinian. The rest of the team assaulted different clusters of buildings that they had practiced in a replica village back at the base. They secured the West Side Boys ammunition building, and the team went in search of gang members who had fled into the jungle. With the village now awake, they were facing considerable firepower. Heavy machine guns across the river were now opening fire onto them, so the paras worked quickly to assemble their mortars. Moments later, the recognizable thud of an 81mm mortar shell could be heard striking the riverbank, accompanied by the crackle of rifles and more substantial thumping of heavy machine guns. After 90 minutes of combat, the paras were picked up by a Chinook that had come from Barras. The helicopter had the Irish Forces Land Rover dangling underneath, collected intact. By 8 a.m., the village was secured, and claymores and mortars were set up to prevent counterattacks. The team destroyed any remaining heavy weapons and machinery and left the village by 2 p.m. With 12 rescuers wounded, 1 severely, the team was medically treated and allowed to rest for a day before returning home to the United Kingdom, all except Trooper Bradley Tinian. Decorations were awarded to the members of Operation Barras, and the mission restored the faith of Sierra Leoneans in the British forces. Thanks for watching. Be sure to click that like button and subscribe to the channel. Sergeant Rooster, over and out.